I'm a real slouching today. I guess that's fine. Come on, Twitch. Why am I not online? There we are. I will tell the world that we are streaming. Today we're making machine stuff and listening to construction noises. Alright, so I spent the day trying to record video of Paradise Killers, so my voice is a little bit spent. We're going to go ahead and do that and get around that anyway. So what we've got here is a very basic crane, and you can see that we've got kind of a Lego surface going on. We're going to go ahead and try to make it a little bit more machinery-ish by adding in some just basic greebling. So here we've got a texture, and we're just going to add just a touch of some kind of basic greeble-tastic visual. It's not going to have to be too complicated. It's just going to be something nice and basic. So we'll go ahead and just spatter in some like that. And paste that in and just create some duplicates. And then we will just create some kind of offset column. And then we'll do some dots. Everybody loves dots, right? Dots. 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 Now we'll do something a little more complicated. Just something like that'll work. But we're going to need to move it so that it's not doing something weird at the end of the screen there. No biggie, just shift it a touch. There we are. Then we can cut and paste and duplicate it a couple of times. Come on. That'll do. And then lastly, we'll create one little black wedge thing going on down here. And once again, we'll just cut and paste that. This might be a little bit too strong in terms of the amount of opacity we're getting out of it, so we'll just bring the opacity down. And we'll just duplicate the whole layer, lock it, move it. There we go. And then we'll just invert the colors on the other layer, like this. Shoop, shoop. And shoop. That's not working too well with our high opacity, or lower opacity rather, so we'll go ahead and increase that opacity back up. Didn't seem to get very much in the way of pop. That's okay. Lower those together, lower the opacity, save it as metal surface a.png. Go back over into Unreal, and then we've got metal surface a.png. Now we just have to make a material, so we're going to go ahead and create another machine skin node. Another machine skin material, but this one's a little bit different. We're going to go ahead and call this generic greeble. Open that up. We're going to want a texture. Can I bring a texture in like this? Texture coordinate. I would presume that it understands that I want a color. So I was hoping that what it would do is it would give me a list of the things that have color outputs. Instead of forcing me to try and find the texture sample. Apparently not. There's the texture object. We need the texture sample. Where? Oh, missing an input texture. I guess we need a texture object too. I thought we only needed one or the other, but I guess we need both. Not a huge deal. We'll use both. There we are. So this texture object is obviously going to have to be our new friend, the generic greeble. What did we call it? Metal surface. There we go. That's all well and good, but we're going to need to turn that into a normal map as well. And so we'll come over here. We'll go ahead and say normal map. There is a normal map function, a thing that can take a normal from height map. There it is. And we'll just drop that texture in. And that's going to give us our normal. We also want to use one of these channels for metallic and specular and roughness and all that stuff. I'm going to go ahead and just choose one at random, and we'll just use it for all three. Oh, what the heck, we'll do it like this, why not? Just for kicks. And now this should be a functional element. I just don't know whether or not this will work if I don't manually specify all of these values. It says it's got a default. We'll go ahead and see if that's true. Alright, so now if we drop the generic greeble onto this machine, it definitely changed the color of the machine. Okay, so it looks like our UV unwrapping for this thing is very second rate, so we're going to have to go and UV unwrap it. I think maybe I forgot to UV unwrap it entirely. Give me a second. Gotta pull it up. There we are. Alright, so, yeah, obey me. What is it, middle mouse? Oh, I don't like it when my various systems all have different navigations. How do you move around in Blender? Shoot, I can't remember. I was using Blender this morning, and I've already forgotten. I hold Shift. Okay. And I guess if I hold Alt, it does a different thing. If I hold Control... Yeah, okay. Oh man, I wish people would get their acts together and give us 800 identical maneuvering setups. You probably could make it so they have the same one. Now, I just UV unwrapped it with a quote-unquote smart UV unwrap. I doubt it was smart enough, though. I suppose we'll find out. Oh, I have to export it. That's right. Doop. It said it changed. It processed the change. I don't see. See, this here is a clear sign that there's no UV unwrapping. Okay, so it UV unwrapped. I bet I only had a part of it selected. No, I had the whole thing selected, so why is the UV unwrapping so weird? It should be fine. I mean, look at that. That seems pretty normal. It's not how I would frame it, but it's relatively normal. For some reason, it's not really working out. Let's go ahead and just scale it up a bunch. Oh, I forgot to export it. I want to try and keep this light and easy because this is just us blocking out the various details. Okay, see? There we have it. So the only issue we've got is that the brush that we created, the brush that we used, I wanted it to create some kind of like brushed metal visual, and instead it created this strange metal foam visual, which is not really what I wanted. So we might have to go and create a different thing for it, but you get the same basic idea, right? This is the same basic idea. For some reason, even though the metal is turned way up, it should be quite metallic, but I don't see it. I don't see the metallic nature of it. Do I have to bake it before I get the metal nature? Let's find out. Overlapping UVs. Oh, that's right, because I scaled up the UV map so they loop, and Unreal doesn't know what to do about that. I think I can adjust that by telling it to use its own damn common sense. If I go over into Static Mesh Scantry, we should have the settings over here. Generate light map UVs. You've already set to generate them, so why are you generating them as overlapping? That's interesting. I was kind of hoping there would be an option to just have it auto unwrap for the UV, but I guess not. That's kind of annoying. I guess we will simply come over here and unwrap it again. This time without the scaling that we did, because it apparently doesn't like that. Whiny bastards. Only thing is, I think this will still overlap because I have a mirrored object. I think I ran into this problem before where Unreal really hated mirrored objects. There's got to be a way around it. I don't happen to know it, though. Either way, we're going to have to change the material to allow us to use a UV multiplier. So let's do that. Why is it so hard to find the normal thing that you always want? Light map UVs? Where's the normal texture UVs? Why is this so... You'd think this would be super, super basic. I'm just looking for the fucking UVs. And it probably is, but they probably named them something like Canister 8x9. And we'll never be able to find them without manually scrolling down to this part and manually searching through the list. Misc my butt. It's not misc. I don't know what this is. Sub UV? Was this different a couple weeks ago? I didn't have this problem before. For fuck's sake. Unreal UV node. Yes, I know what a UV is. Okay, it's called text coord. Of course it is. Why would you call it UV? Like it is called in literally everything, including your own damn... Whatever, it's fine, it's fine. Anyway, we got to multiply the text coord by something. So we'll go ahead and put in a vector 2. Constant? I mean, I guess it's okay as a constant. Now, I want it as a parameter that I can change, but I guess I can change it here just as well. Go ahead and say it's like 3.3. And then we'll multiply. And there, now we've got some pattern back in our setup. We can polish it later, figure out exactly what we want later. It still just looks, it does not look like it has any metallicity or any shine to it at all. It looks like a flat, really, really basic plastic. Oh, you know what the problem is? The problem is that the roughness is... Oh, is that light map damage? That must be what it is. Well, the good news is that it didn't seem to care this time, so I guess it's okay with the mirrored objects after all. Yay for us! Anyway, the real problem here is that the generic greeble roughness is set to blue. It should be set to 1 minus blue. That ought to make it sufficiently shiny. Not really. It's definitely better, though. Anyway, we want to create some other things. And there's a lot of ways to create buildings in Unreal. Obviously, we could model them in Blender and then bring them into Unreal. We could also model them out of shape brushes, geometry brushes in Unreal. This has some downsides, but it has the advantage of letting us block things out really rapidly. So let's try that. Let's try doing that, and then we'll come back and you know, we'll make something that is more mesh specific. We'll make like a proper set of meshes once we've blocked out how we want the buildings to look. So the idea here is that these mech gantries would be inside of a building. So what we're going to do is just make a couple duplicates here. What? What did I paste? I thought I pasted a gantry, but it made the... No, that was weird. It's fine, I guess. There we are. And now we want a kind of basic building for containing these. So we'll go ahead and go down into geometry brushes and add ourselves a box. We'll switch it over to being a shell. Shell, there it is. And we'll make it nice and big. Just trying to keep in mind how big these shapes are in comparison. That might be too tall. There we are. Now we're going to need to assign it some textures, some materials. So let's go ahead and choose some materials. We'll just use hull for now. We'll come back to it later if we need to. There's an easier way to do this. Now the question is, did I set the material of the box to hull, or did I set the ground? Okay, good. It's the box. Anyway, we'll go ahead and select the entire brush and drop ourselves in hull here as well. We've actually got weathered metal. Let's go ahead and use that. Just for now. We'll work on that later to make it something a little different, because it's probably not going to be metal. It might be metal, but if it is metal, it'll be a little bit more refined than just a giant block like this. Anyway, what we can do is copy paste the brush box, set it to subtractive. I don't believe that hollow makes any sense when you're a subtractive brush, so we're going to remove that, and we're going to just shrink it down. So it's like an entrance. And that will cut through this hall. Like so. And that means that when we put these things inside, it will work fine. The only problem is that the whole building is floating a little bit too high off the ground. So we will select both of these box brushes and just move them down. That's probably fine. We'll just move these to be a little bit more in line with what you would expect to find. Is that too high? That's too high. Okay, that's no biggie. We'll turn off grid snapping for a minute. And what we're going to do is these people are going to be all half loaded in. Turn off snapping there too. Get a little bit of physicality in there. But this room is not the right size or shape yet, so we're going to change it. Now there is some question as to whether or not I need to be able to see the inside of this room very well. I don't think we're going to bother, but we do need to get at least a little bit of a good paint job. 32 is never going to work out, so we're going to go ahead and change all of these to 256, which is also very, very poor, but it's okay. We don't have any direct, like, complicated lighting going on in there. Let's just go ahead and bake the whole thing and see what happens. Oh, the more I look at this texture, the worse I like it. It's terrible. Oh, the gantries are having overlapping UVs. That must be because I'm mirroring them. Should be exactly 50% though, you'd think. Let's go ahead and switch this over to something else. Generic hull. That'll be a little bit better. So obviously when you're doing this kind of building, there's a lot of things to keep in mind, and we're not keeping any of them in mind. We are, in fact, pretty much not doing anything, and just kind of making a big box. Let's go ahead and add a little bit of exterior stuff so that it's not quite so crap. Obviously, one of the exterior things you're probably going to want to add is some kind of window-like thing. Might as well. So we're going to go and create a window here. Now, if you're going to create a window, what you really need to do is create two boxes like this and shrink one of them down like this. And then the other one, set it to additive and make it the right size. That way you get a little window frame, see? Very basic, right? Let's create some window frames for the sides as well. We've got to set the shape up to be a little bit more window-like. You know, to be honest, that's not a bad window shape, but it's obviously far too wide. We'll shrink that down. What the? Come on, don't do that to me. Jerk. We could move these onto each other, but they're not allowed to be attached, which is really strange. Whatever. We'll just copy them both at the same time. What did I grab? Did I grab too much? I think I grabbed too much. Just undo that. Redo that. What? Okay, that seems right. I think I hit Shift instead of Control, and it ended up causing me all sorts of grief. There do seem to be some boxes. Well, whatever. Anyway, we should be able to select there, copy, paste. Move them to the other side. You can see we've got some issues where we've got some non-materials. We'll select all those non-materials and set them to hull, just for now. And I believe that this was brush 5, and then we bring it all the way down to brush 16, and then move them all. There we go. Is that too... something like that. Now for the roof, I think we're just going to grab this bad boy, copy him, pull him up, change him over so that he's not hollow, shrink him down, and expand him in the right directions. And if we want to have something a little bit fun, we'll go ahead and offset them like this. And create a little overhang sort of thing. You just copy that box, bring it down, shrink it in. Rotate it. Do it again. I don't know, something like that in terms of shape. We'll go ahead and do more than just block it out later. But for now, I'm just trying to get the shape to feel like it's, realistic. I guess we should go back into that gantry and... I don't know. It seems strange that, that we can't get a mirrored UV map to work. You'd think that Unreal would have had to deal with that before. Let me just check. Unreal, mirrored, Blender, object, light map, overlap. Oh, I got a news from my boss. Alright, so... It just says you're not allowed to mirror them. Make sure you've got your light map coordinates set to 1. So basically their suggestion is to mirror it and then unwrap it again, which is astonishingly dumb. Just a amazingly bad pipeline. That's fine though. We'll go ahead and do it because fuck them. Doop. No. Well, they're no longer even across the keel, but I guess that's kind of what we expected. Let's go ahead and rebake, see what happens. So technically we are allowed to have UV mirrors, but only if it's on UV 0 and Unreal automatically generates UV 1 off of UV 0. The fuck is this? Enable error coloring. Boy, it sure would have been super nice if your enable error coloring warning actually showed me where the fuck error coloring is. Unreal enable error coloring. Can't figure out how to enable error coloring. Does anybody know how? It's not in any of those sections. It's under build. Obviously. Obviously, show something on the front end in the UI should be under build. Amazing. It doesn't seem to have done anything though, does it? I guess if I have to rebuild the lighting, it'll do something. Everybody's complaining about the same thing I'm complaining about. So it says, if you can't make 2 UV sets, you can let UE4 handle it for you. You might want to reuse the UVs from channel 0. Yeah, except the UVs from channel 0 overlap, so I don't know if you're listening to yourself when you talk and give advice, but maybe you should consider giving advice that doesn't suck. Okay, so this time I must have gotten some errors. I was looking away. Did it go away before I could click on it? We'll rebuild it again. And what I'll do is I will try and tell it to build UV maps without referencing UV0, see whether or not it has its own unpacking algorithm. Okay, this time it popped up. Is that the error? This weird brown part? Looks like just shade to me. No, I guess they all have the same brown shade there. So that must be the 30% that's in error. That 30% is that one little egg right there. Interesting. Interesting. Well, let's open it up and tell it to generate light map UVs. There it is, right there. Generate them, please. Source light map index. I don't want it to use the light map. I don't think it has its own unwrapper. Unreal generate UV, generate light map, light UV. Generating light map UVs. Yeah, it clearly says fuck me. It just says we don't do anything. When we generate the light map UVs, we literally just take the UVs from the other thing and put them over here. Well. I guess we'll live with it for now. I'm sure there's other solutions. So the issue we have is that one of these, I think it's this one over here, is overlapping. So if we take a look, which one is it? It's in a book. Come on. It's that one. If we select everything, I don't see any overlaps. I mean, it was overlapping here. It was all, like, busted up in this region, right? I don't see anything even vaguely like an overlap. I just don't get it. I certainly don't see a 37% overlap. Some serious bullshit. Yeah, that was it. I mean, in theory, it could be this one over here, but that's the same situation. Oh, it's not. That one's all chaotic. Move! Fucking go! Jesus, why won't you let me move shit? Okay. Did I or did I not just figure out... Okay, so I see. If I'm zoomed in, it won't let me drag? I just don't know. Blender is doing weird shit today. Anyway, this one light map region is much more torn up than the rest. So presumably that is the light map region that's giving us difficulty. It's right here to here? No, it's not. I don't know. Couldn't tell you. It certainly doesn't appear to be 30-something%, though. I'm not happy with what they're doing when they're pretending. You can see the light map quality here. That's fine for us for now. Let's see how it feels in play. So there's the building. Just head on over there. Obviously, we're mostly going for size comparisons here rather than anything else. It does seem to have generated collisions. Good. Someone's parked directly outside my window, idling with a giant truck. Yeah, I mean, obviously this building is just a stand-in. I'm trying to think about ways we might make it a little bit better, and I could do things like add corners. I guess we might as well, right? So please drive away. You are giving me a headache. Yes, we know you have a very small penis. Now leave. The number of people driving what could laughably be called motorcycles is going up every day. They're much manlier if you don't have any exhaust management. It shows that you're a manly man because you don't take care of yourself, your machines, or the environment. That makes you manly. Trust me. I know. I'm a man. There we are. Just copy that. That seems like it's a little bit too much. Did I get the same amount on this side? Yeah, I guess I did. That's fine. We'll go ahead and leave it like that since it's just for you know, mocking it up in the first place. I believe that the motorcycle guy moved 20 feet down the road because I can still hear him. But he's not outside my window anymore, and that is a win. All right, one more rebuild. But in addition to this particular kind of building, I also want to create buildings that you sort of half run through. And I'm thinking that maybe it would be 35%. Where are they getting this? And I'm thinking maybe it would be fun to have... I haven't decided, should they be ruined buildings or should they be active buildings that are just kind of open-faced and have a big interior. See, right here, there's a chance that the player will run off and try and jump across this big pit to get over here. I think that that's fine. Here, there's a chance the player will want to shortcut across this little gap here. That's on purpose too. But here, it's pretty much a straight shot. There's really no reason for the player to leave the road. So this would be a really good spot to put a building that the player can run through, right here. So let's go ahead and do just that. First, however, I really do want to turn all of these brushes that I just did into some kind of prefab so that I don't have to put them all in the same setup here. Go ahead and convert that into a prefab. No, unfortunately, it won't let me do it right. We'll call this we'll call this a small warehouse. Why do I only have the cancel option? There. So the reason that I wanted to convert it in a different way is because this doesn't actually work. See? I can't move it. I'm not sure what this is. I'm not familiar enough with Unreal to know what the purpose is of having a blueprint that cannot be moved. And if you duplicate it, you can't move the duplicate. It's like, what's the point? What is the point? So what we are actually doing is we created a warehouse of a sort. I'm not sure what that is, but it still shows all the brushes inside. Problem is we can no longer edit them in the world, and if we edit them as part of the blueprint, like this, you can't fucking see them. So I mean, whose idea was this as a viable blueprint? Well, clearly what we'll do is we won't do that. We will undo all of that nonsense until we are back to just these. Then we will create just an empty object. Basic empty actor. Drop it in. There's our empty actor. We will call this a small warehouse. We can't nest box brushes. For some reason, you're not allowed to put them inside of each other. But we should be able to put them all inside of that one object, which I called small warehouse. Yeah, just drag it down. Move. Thank you. So it can't. Nothing can be done. How do you wrangle BSP brushes? Says, cool, you're using Unreal now. How does it feel compared to Unity? So Unity is one of those things where there's a lot of stuff within easy reach. It's very approachable. But when you start to dig and you need custom stuff, it just immediately falls apart. For example, right now Unity has no pipelines that are stable, no render pipelines that are stable. But if you're, just using Unity at a basic level, you might not even realize that until you decide that you suddenly need like a custom shader or something. Unreal doesn't have that problem, but it is a giant wall of fuck you, that's why, from beginning to end. So it's got a lot of real solid features and a real solid approach to things that make no sense at all until someone sits down and explains them to you, and nobody does that. Nobody has decent tutorials on Unreal. They have the same 8 tutorials, sometimes word for word the same 8 tutorials, and they don't cover jack shit. And for example, how do I move these box brushes into a prefab? Why can't I move geometry brushes into a prefab? It makes no sense. See, the issue here is simply that there's a million friggin' geometry brushes, and it's ugly as hell to have them just kind of clogging up the area, and they're not telling you where to get how to get rid of them. Nope, no hint of it. So, says they know nothing about Unreal. That's fine. I don't require you to help me. But the only way I can cluster these brushes together is by making it so they can never be edited again, which is kind of stupid, right? So I'm not sure what the thought is on that. Can I create a directory? I mean, look, there's like directories here. There must be a way for me to create a directory. And then I should be able to put them inside of a directory, right? How do I create a directory? Create directory, there it is. We'll call this small warehouse, and we'll try and move them into a directory instead of into an object. Oh, there we are. That'll do. It's not ideal, but it's certainly okay. So now that we've done that, we can create a much larger temporary structure. Valloc says I can group them. I'll try that next time. I was just thinking stuff. Oh yeah, so like the official tutorials on how to do terrain, for example, it tells you how to do the most obvious parts. Like, oh, this is how you use a terrain brush to raise your terrain up and down. And it doesn't tell you how to create a terrain material. So like at the end of the tutorial, they're still painting on a grid, like just like a surface that is just checkerboards. And you're like, well, how do you create a material? And they're like, that's not covered. I know how to use a WYSIWYG terrain generator interface. I know how brushes work, but I don't know how to terrain materials work. Their official tutorials on that don't exist. And the weirdest part is that all the tutorials about how to use the terrain are word for word identical. It's fucking bizarre. Anyway, let's create another building. Oh, that's not the right alignment, but we'll make it bigger first. Boom says they're looking at Unigen. I haven't actually heard of that one. So my issue here is that I want to be able to develop things rapidly and easily. And unfortunately for me, Unity no longer does that. I'm a hobbyist. I do prototypes. And I like to be able to develop quickly. Unity doesn't allow me to because everything I do runs into Unity's decaying internal systems. And it gets harder and harder every release. But at the same time, Unreal is a little bit difficult to use. Still, compared to something like Godot, which might be a little bit too young, I would have to do like programming in Godot in order to get the stuff to work. And I want to keep that to a minimum. I want as much as possible to be just WYSIWYG. I want everything to be plug and play. I want it all to work. And once again, we'll just shrink everything down. Yay! Mark it as a negative. Let's see what the negative brush looks like when I leave it as hollow. I'm curious about that. Oh, it does just cut a hollow little chunk. That's interesting. I bet I can come up with some good uses for that. Says they're exhausted by Unity's update style where everything gets replaced by something that doesn't really work yet. Yeah, and I mean, I can live with that for a little bit, but when it happens every update for everything, it really gets obnoxious quick. And that's why Unity is not something I'm developing in anymore. If they're not going to let me develop in it, I'm not going to develop in it. It's that simple. All right, so the only thing of note here is that these are not exiting on the same height, so I have to use that height there. What we'll do is we'll raise the entire size here. Here we are. So now the question becomes, when I move through that, do I actually manage to make it through, or is there going to be trouble? Oh, works fine. Good. Yeah, so far, every single thing about Unreal... Let me adjust the mic here. Every single thing about Unreal has been almost impossible until someone's explained it to me, at which point it was super easy. And that's just not a great thing for a game engine. You don't want to have to already know how everything works before you can make anything. I mean, it's not the worst thing ever, but it would be nice if it were either more friendly on the front end or had better tutorials that were more up to date. There's still no official tutorial on how to create terrain materials, and when I asked people about it, they were like, oh yeah, you should just do it using this. And it's like, what's that? None of the tutorials cover that. And it's just a real sad state of affairs. Peter Nerlich dropped by quickly to say hi. Hello and goodbye. Well, good luck with the rest of your day with whatever you're doing. And we're just gonna make a couple of these windows. Says, are you using C++ or Blueprints? So I was told I should use Blueprints by just about everybody I asked. So that's what I'm doing. I imagine that at some point we will have to have some C++. I'm not scared, but you don't want to try and program something if you don't have to and you're new to the engine. Programming is a great way to have to tackle with the core systems long before you understand what those core systems are. So that's why I don't recommend starting with programming, and neither did anybody that I talked to. So take it from us, I guess. Yeah, so I don't think that there's very much need for a casual developer to use much programming in Unreal. It's all plug and play. It's all node based. But the problem is, of course, that the nodes are really not explained very well. Well, that didn't work. What the heck? Oh, that's right. It's. I thought it was on a grid. It is not on a grid. That's fine. We'll just do it this way. Peter Nerlich says that they watched my lighting in a light control video. They're going to try something similar in Godot, but they'll be busy with a master's course. Well, if you do play around in Godot, I'd like to know how similar it is. I haven't tried to do any light baking in Godot, so I'm not sure how that will work. Just let me know what you find, because as a non-Godot person, I would like to know. Sure, why not? I was looking at Blender 2.91, the next release. It's in early access right now. It's not ready for prime time, but they have a new Boolean setup, and one of my complaints about Blender has been that their Boolean setup is shit. And the biggest reason that it's shit is simply that you have to go into Blender and be like, oh, I'll show you. I've got Blender open. I might as well. If you want to do a Boolean operator in Blender, let's say that we've got this cube, and we've also got this cube, and we would like to Boolean them together. How do you do that? Well, you have to pick one of the cubes to serve as the base cube, and then you come over here and you hit manually Boolean, and then you manually choose an object that you have to manually select the union, intersect, and so on and so forth. It's really, really exhausting, especially when you are using hundreds of objects. The new 2.91 setup is you hit like Control minus, and it just works. So hey, looking forward to that. I'll finally be able to do some Boolean hard surface modeling, which I've been avoiding. Peter Nerlich continues, I just found the light bounce thing and got weird results. Oh yeah, scaled primitives. So I don't know about Godot. I'm not into Godot yet. But fundamentally, the light maps are usually based on the UV unwrap. And what that means is that for a cube, all of the faces are normally considered to be the same light map density. And when you scale a cube, so it's like 0.025 in one direction and 80 in the other, you're going to get a light map that's got some really awful skewing. And that's why, in general, you'll find yourself better after you replace those with properly modeled results, properly modeled elements. But you can, get results that don't suck too bad by just having the light maps be too big. Boom says they also saw the news about the Booleans. There's a cool level design add-on that stopped working because they threw out the slower, more precise algorithm. I think they have the new precise algorithm again. Yeah, they do. It's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to that. Blender is the only piece of software I know of where the updates are actually good. All right, so this is a basic thing for us to run through. Let's add some fun. So if we select this door, there it is. We can replace it with an additive brush and then move it to the side and then scale it properly. Good enough. And then we'll copy paste it and then shrink it. And then bring it down. Grow it. And we're going to want this one to be a wall, so we'll copy paste it, bring it in. And this is basically just to keep the player from trying to run down here, because otherwise it'll have a risk of them getting stuck in the geometry, and that would be really obnoxious. Is there another one in the middle? Nope, good. I gauged it right. All right, so let's go ahead and add just a little bit more decoration. You know what, let's just leave it like that. Peter Nerlich says, in Godot, this I forgot the name is a zone that can be scaled and is itself uniformly subdivided into cells where the light is computed. Unreal does things very differently, and so on. Yeah, so Unreal actually does do volumetric lighting, which is probably what you're talking about. The problem is that when the final result has to be rendered, what you get is a light map that's baked onto a 2D surface using a UV map sort of thing. So even though they use volumetric lighting, or I guess they call it, what do you call it? Adaptive voxel lighting, whatever it's called. Even though they use that to do the calculations, in the end, they have to still print it onto actual objects in the game. Yeah. I said volumetric lighting on accident. What we're talking about light. Here, I'll show you. So if we come over here, we should be able to tell it to show lighting. Lighting. There is a way to show it. These. Don't know whether those are going to show up. Oh, there they are. See this? This is how it's calculated here. And it's probably the same in Godot. It's the same in Unity. And the only question is how you manipulate this. So it's not volumetric lighting. That was a mistake. I just set it on out of habit. It's volume lighting. And it's inside of these voxel spaces. And as you get more stuff, they break the voxels down so that you get more density. See? And this allows them to calculate how light works in those areas. They store a vector and a brightness for each of these balls, and that allows them to do things like shadow casting as the player walks through or whatever. And it's more efficient than, if they had to actually calculate out the way that the baked light was falling on the player at every possible frame. Yeah, I can't say that for sure that's how Godot does it, but that's how I would expect Godot does it, because that's how Unity and Unreal both do it. Yes, it's the same basic philosophy. It's not the exact same implementation, but it's very close to how Unity does it. Now in Unreal, you can technically choose to not do it that way. There is another option, but it's not very good. I got to replace these walls with something that's not quite so shit. Have to work on that. There are some built-in materials. Here, we could get clay. I don't want the clay ones, though. I want something ceramic checkered tile, a chair, cobblestone, concrete with grime, concrete with panels. That'll do. Technically, I should rebake it, but I'm not going to. The reason I should rebake it is because they now have a different amount of reflectivity, a different albedo, so they would theoretically reflect less light. Still pretty crap, but that's what you get with geometry brushes. Geometry brushes are super, super basic. They're mostly just for trying to work things out in terms of shape. You can see how big this room is in comparison to some of the other locations. And that's the point. I want it to feel pretty big. We'll add in like pipes and stuff. Why don't we go ahead and do that now, because it's fun. I like pipes, and I'm trying to relax. So for pipes, we're just going to use a cylinder. Just drop that in and rotate it 90 degrees. Oh, that's not going to rotate 90 degrees. There we are. That'll rotate 90. And it's not quite aligned with the building, so we'll just rotate it until it is, more or less. I probably should have rotated the whole building after I was done with it, but it is too late now. When I build it in Unreal or whatever, a Blender or whatever, I'll build it on an on-axis, so this part won't be tough. But we're going to have to go into this brush and change the material over to something... No, that's not it. Change the material over to something metal. Have we got a default metal in Unreal? Explosion, fire, frame? Frame. Sure, frame will do. And we will just... Nope. No, that's not the right axis. Right now we're doing this with, I think it's 8. We should be able to select any amount, though. We shouldn't need to do 8. Light map resolution 0? Never saw that before. That's weird. 8. Let's make that 16. There we go. And we'll just paste, bring that up. And what we're actually going to do here is join them in the middle. So we're going to want to rotate, shrink. Bye, Peter. Have fun, or sleep well, or whatever it is that you'd like to do. Anyway, we can just select both of these and then move them so that we have 2 sets. And then we can copy this and shrink it on all axes. There we are. Let's bake it and see what happens. Keep checking my email because technically I'm still on the clock. Not as in I'm working, but as in I have to be available if something goes wrong. And people keep sending me emails, but it's always not about work. So, or not about anything critical at work. Read the room. All right. A little bit strange and silly, but not too bad. It'll serve as a good inspiration for when we decide we want to actually build something. To be honest, I think an L shape might be better. Should I go ahead and just build it into an L shape now? Yeah, let's build it into an L shape now. It's easier to do it now rather than later. So basically, to turn it into an L shape, we're going to grab the outer shell and copy it, and paste it, bring it over, resize it. Like that. We could change the height. Why not? Just make it taller. And then we will move it in like this. And then we will just copy that. No, that's too wide. Copy that, paste it, invert it, and shrink it. And there we go. Very basic. Let's go ahead and move it down into the ground some. Or just, in general, shrink it on this axis. So in this case, we actually don't want that shell to be a shell. We'll let this define exactly where it goes to and where it stops. And we will turn this into an additive and shrink it again. we'll just stick in some shelves. Let's add some details, because I feel like adding details. All right, good enough. One more baking job. And then we're going to stop for the day. So, thanks for hanging out with me. I will see you on Saturday if you want to watch more of this shit. And if you don't, that's fine. You can stop by my channel for videos that are a little bit less stream of consciousy. Not my Twitch channel, my YouTube channel. Let's just see how it looks before we're done for the day. Yeah, of course, there's overlapping light maps. Yeah, so I was hoping that we might catch a little bit of that light from that hole. Not quite as much as I wanted. I'll have to keep that in mind when I'm building it in the final version. Alright. Thank you very much. Have a good one. Bye-bye.